Hey, we have Miss Adler's 8th grade advanced art class here to talk to you. So these are our future artists. So they're excited to hear what you have to say.
All right, very good. Can we turn? Is there any way to um, turn your guys' camera low? Because all I'm seeing is the ceiling right now.
How's that?
Hey, what? Much better. All
Great. Perfect. All right.
right, hi guys, how's it going?
Hi.
Good, very good. All right, 8th grade, top of the pile. Um, my name's Jesse, and I'm an illustrator and a fine artist, and a musician and a lot of other stuff. But my main job is working with visual art. Um, half my job is fine art in that I just paint whatever I want to and hope it sells. And if it doesn't, I cry myself to sleep or paint over it or whatever. If it does, I do a little dance and buy bread for the kids. Illustration is the other half of it is illustration, whether it's book illustration or commercial illustration, and that's more of a job. That one's more of a job than fine art. Fine art just it's very much whatever I want to do. I want to work on a body of work for an art show. Then I just do that. It doesn't feel quite as much like work, even though it is. Everything's work. But the illustration, I have a boss, and my boss for illustration is not the publisher who pays me. My boss is the concept. Whether it's a book, if it's a book, then it's the text. That baby that the author has sort of created is my boss. If it's a commercial thing, whether it's an album cover or something like that, then it's the concept behind the album, that kind of thing. For book illustration, I really enjoy it. It's something that I didn't think I would do, especially when I was a teenager. My dad has been an illustrator for quite a while, and so when I was a teenager, I was like, forget it. That's the last thing in the world I want to do is do the same thing my dad did. I don't want to do books. And instead I wanted to do fine art. So I did a bunch of fine art, and as I was doing art shows, other people pointed out to me, they were like, man, you really work like an illustrator in that you have this visual narrative. You're telling a story through your images. You walk into one of your art shows at a gallery, and you walk through the walls, and without any words, you're telling a story by the way that these different pieces fit together to kind of create a whole environment. Depending on what the subject matter is, if it's about a place I've been, then it will be just many images of elements of the culture of the place of the people. So I sort of moved into book illustration specifically about about 10 years ago or so, and I've done about 33 books since then. And let me just tell you a little bit of how I work. Generally, I'll get a call or an email or something from a publisher, and they'll say, hey, we looked at your work. We think you'd be good for this particular project, and they'll tell me about the project. Here's one fairly recent one. This book is kind of thrashed, so the cover is a little bit wrinkled and dirty, but this is a pretty amazing book, Golden Boy by Tara Sullivan. I don't know, you guys may have it in the library there. It's pretty hardcore. It's an intense book. It's about the plight of albinos, particularly albino children in East Africa right now. Several countries in East Africa are having a real serious situation with the treatment of albinos there. So for the project, they said, here's half the book. Half the book is edited. Read that. Tell us what you think. So I read it, and I loved it. Loved the first half, and said, all right, yeah, I'm definitely going to do this book. I'll do it. And so then I just start the same way anybody does in the process of reading it. Just like you guys, when you read a book, you have a movie sort of playing in your mind of the visual impressions that you get. And it's not nothing you try to do, it's just what happens when you read, And so what I do is, as an illustrator, I start collecting those images and just sort of jotting them down, taking little quick, brief thumbnail sketches. And as I go through that book, I get more and more of a sense of what the main character is like, and visually what sorts of things I want to include in the piece. And then I start sketching. This is one of 2 books I have of stuff for this particular book, and it starts out really small and not very good. And that's the secret, is it doesn't start good. It can't start good. I've got to start by getting all the bad ideas out of my mind first, right? My first idea has almost never been the one that I end up with. Instead, it's all just scaffolding that leads me to the next idea. Some of them are better than others. And along the way, I just keep on going. As I continue to sketch, I take note of certain ones that I like. You know, I'll put a little star by some. I kind of like this one where you just see a glimpse of him through hands. But that wasn't quite right. There's another whole page of them. And what I'm doing is I'm just letting my brain try out lots of different possibilities, knowing that if I get close, I can just put a little star by it or something and keep it in mind, and then do more based on that. This one, I kind of like this one a lot. I like this one of a whole bunch of different faces all around him, but it didn't quite tell the story. It didn't tell enough of an emotional story. And this book is really, like I said, it's pretty heavy. It's not a light read, but it's a very beautiful, powerful book. You know, and I just make my way through as many ideas as I can. And the goal is to try to, I'm envisioning as I'm doing this, I'm envisioning myself looking at the subject and in my mind walking around him. You know, for this boy, I'm just walking around, I'm looking at him, I'm following him through the day and trying to catch a glimpse of him in whatever setting or activity he might be doing. There were a couple on this page that I quite. Oh yeah, here's another one. There was a little sketch, and I did a little bit bigger sketch of that same concept before. But as I did it bigger, I just realized, nah, it's not quite right. That was inspired. It was kind of inspired by a Norman Rockwell painting that I had seen. But I just keep on going. I quite like this one of him just in a hoodie where it was sort of like hollow eyes, kind of, but the publisher didn't like that one. Finally, I did this one where I don't even know if you can see it. It's so faint. This one here. And the idea was, I was thinking about the kid and the fact that in his culture, he's seen as kind of a ghost. In fact, they call him ghosts. And but for him, he probably would. I don't want to give very much about the story away, but in his situation, he would want to be seen as a ghost, or he would want to not be seen at all. Not by his family, but by the society that he's in at that time. And so I thought that might actually be a great way to show the emotion of the situation. And so based on that tiny little sketch, I did a bigger one, and then it just went from there until finally I started working on the final piece. With this, I'll send those little sketches to the editor and to the art director, and the publishers, you know, they have people that specifically work on the visuals, and usually the editor works with the text of the book, but the editor is definitely involved in figuring out how the visuals are going to join with the text. And so the editor is involved, the art director is involved, and they both sort of get together and look at the sketches and say, yeah, we like this one, we don't like this one, whatever, and they give me feedback. Once I get that feedback, then I sometimes will adjust my sketch again and send them another round of sketches. And then eventually they send it to the author and get the thumbs up or down from the author. Sometimes they don't care. They're like, yeah, we don't care if you don't like it. This is what we're going to do, just because that's how they work. But in this case, the author really dug that first sketch a lot. And so when I got the feedback from the publisher, they just said, yeah, go for it. So and then I just paint it. And what I generally do for my paintings is, this is the cover of the book, Chess Rumble. I do it on illustration board, which is a really fine surface to work on. I use this Strathmore 500 series, and it's got a very nice like drawing paper kind of feel to it, and it's thin and flexible. And the reason why it's important is because until very recently, the only way they could get the images onto the book was to do a drum scan, and that's a big round surface. They put it on like this, attach it on, and then it spins very fast. And it gets you an excellent quality scan of the image. So this is what I generally work on for that kind of stuff. For my fine art, I work on canvas, on wood, on whatever is best for that piece. But on this stuff, I generally work on illustration board. And then as well, once I get the scan back from the publisher, I might do a little bit of digital processing on my end, and then resubmit it to them, so then they can take that and print it. And then my job there is pretty much done. I just have to wait for the book to come a couple months later, and then, you know, a couple months after that, I finally get my paycheck, and that's how it rolls. I really like the process of doing this kind of visual storytelling, but it's really visual problem solving with illustration. So yeah, that's pretty much my process working on these books, whether it's a picture book or a book cover. For picture books, it's the same deal. It's like it's just tons of little not that good sketches, and that's how it all starts. A lot of times when I go and visit schools, kids will see just a finished painting. Like, for example, this stuff. This is a new book that's just out, Soccer Fence, and it's about South Africa, about the transition from apartheid to democracy in South Africa. And some kids will see the finished painting, and they'll be like, "Oh, I can't do that, so I'm not even going to try." I got to tell them, "Well, hold up, I can't do that either. You should see my first sketch." And when I show them the first sketch, it's like a little stick figure kind of sketch, and they go, "Well, I can do that. That's easy. I can do that." And I say, "All right, there we go." I just start with that little sketch, and I just gradually get bigger and get more defined. I find model to work with, so I have to go and shoot pictures of a person and look at that while I'm drawing. And it's just a slow, steady process of letting the image evolve from concept all the way down to the finished work. Yeah, I don't know. Would you guys have some questions about the process or about anything else?
Okay. So I'm already go right up to the. Okay, my face will be. But so you kind of already answered it, but did the author write the book and then you did the illustrations for Chess Rumble, or did you both do your parts at the same time?
Yeah, good question. Well, I'm not finding it right now, but yeah, for Chess Rumble we had. There we go. For Chess Rumble, the author wrote the story, worked on it with the editor, and got it pretty much done. And then the editor contacted me, and the editor is a gal that I had been visiting in New York, trying to bug to get work for a couple of years. Whenever I went to New York, I would run by her office and say hi, and she'd be like, "Oh, good to see you, good to see you," and then shake my hand, like pulling me out the door, like, "Bye bye, go away." And so I thought, okay, all is lost. I'm not going to work with this publisher ever. But eventually they found a project that was just right for me, and then they called me up and said, "All right, we got this manuscript. We're going to email it to you. Read it. If you like it, do the book." And so I read it, and I was like, very much into doing that project. And then after that, because generally I won't, the publisher's job is to protect the illustrator from the author. No offense to authors out there. But what I definitely couldn't handle, would be to be bombarded by minute input from the author. You know what I'm saying? It would kill the creative process on my end, and that's one of the reasons that they really choose carefully who they have illustrate a project, because what you're doing is you're transferring power from the author at that point and handing it over to the illustrator. And I would say, if you guys are going to see Greg in a little while, I would ask him about that, because I'm sure there's stuff that he still was like, I would have done that different. I still would have done that different, but it's out of his hands and it's in my hands. So that's how the thing works. It's like a balance of both people's perception, the author's perception and the illustrator's perception. And a publisher that is a good publisher will find just the right illustrator who's going to carefully handle that text. I think I do a pretty careful job with the text. I don't ignore. I'm quite concerned with what the author feels about the final product. So I want to just illuminate that manuscript as much as I can. It doesn't always happen like that. On the case of this book, which I can't find the book right now somewhere, but for this book, it's called I, and it's about you-know-who. This one I did a bunch of art. I had done many paintings of Bob Marley and sold a ton of them over the years, and so I pitched this idea to the publisher. I said, "Why you guys, especially Lee and Low Books, this is the publisher that did Chess Rumble." I said, "Hey, why don't you guys have any books about Bob Marley for kids?" And I sort of presented my ideas why I thought that was an important book, and they were like, "Yeah, you're right. Okay." And so they took my art and then went and found an author who would write a text that would kind of match the style of the art. And that's the first time that's ever happened for me, where the art came first. Now, once the author did the text, then I redid all the art based on that specific text. So I repeated the job again. So I may have had a couple of paintings of him that they were inspired by, but then I went, I did the same process where every page that needed art, I would create that specifically for it. So yeah, generally the author works on the work, finishes it, and then the editor edits it, and then after that point, then they send it to the illustrator.
Studs, you kind of already answered the question, so you want to skip it? Nassim?
Sorry.
My name is Nassim, and how long did the illustrates take for like each page or something?
Yeah, that's a good question. Forever, man. It takes forever. This project, here's a piece that had the art. This part was on the left-hand side, then there was a block of text in the middle, and then this part was on the right-hand side, right, of the spread. And this probably took a month, or well, yeah, it probably took at least 3 weeks to do just the painting part of it. But the underneath the iceberg part is that I had to do a model shoot with the character, where I took like 100 photos of this one scene and in a lot of different varieties, just to use as photo reference for myself for when I'm going to paint it. Before that was a whole bunch of sketches. So I mean, easily a month for each page or more. I mean, usually it takes about a year to do a book. And I work a lot. On a lot of these projects, I'll just work through the night, just work until it's done. On this book, Hope for Haiti, I did it in a really short amount of time because there was a pressing need, and I was trying to have the book generate assistance to Haiti, like monetary assistance, and also attention and stuff like that. So I didn't sleep. For 3 months I was up until 4 in the morning. And I'd wake up to help get my kids ready for school, and then I would just keep working. And I was so tired I was like fall asleep while I'm painting and wake up on my painting, stuff like that. But that's the quickest one I've ever done, and I crammed a lot of work. I crammed a lot of it into a very short amount of time. But generally, yeah, it takes a while. If I was smart, I would do a really simple cartoony style, a real commercial style, and then I would get paid the same, but it would take me 1/10 of the time, and I would do better. But I'm not like that. I just am too stubborn. I just want it to look a certain way because that's what I feel. So there it goes.
Yeah.
My name is Diego. I have a question. It says, is the book Just Rumble based on a real person or an event?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Greg and I have done a lot of touring with this book. We've done lots of school visits together, and so over the time we've got to become good friends, and I've understood his the inception of this book, and it definitely was based on stuff he'd been reading about chess mentors in inner cities around the country, particularly in D.C. and I think there's one in New York as well. But particularly a guy in D.C. I'm not going to tell you about him because I'm sure he'll share that with you guys when he comes to the school. But yeah, it's absolutely based on the motivation of this book was seeing that as a really an uncovered story, or like a story that hasn't been told that much in the States. But there's a lot of it going on with chess being used as a really useful tool to get folks thinking, and that's what we need in America more than anything, is people actually thinking. But I'm not going to tell you too much about that because I know Greg will want to tell you about that specifically, so you can let him tell you.
Hi, I'm Isaac, and I was wondering what was the process of choosing a color scheme for your illustrations?
Oh, I like it. Awesome. Good question. Yeah, well, that's something I consider really carefully ahead of time. In fact, oh man, I don't know where that went. I do have I don't know where it is in the studio right now. But what I'll do is sometimes when I get thumbnail sketches for all the art in a picture book, say, I'll copy them and print out little versions of them, and I'll do 5 or 6 underpainting colors, and then arrange them all in a big board where I have the whole book laid out with what the underpainting color is going to be for that, and what the palette is going to end up being influenced by. Because what I do is, on this painting here, this is of Bob when he was a little guy in Trenchtown, but I don't know if you can see that green color behind there. You gonna see that green? It's a sap green. Okay, this is acrylic on the illustration board. It's a sap green, and what I do is I'll sketch out with a pencil. I'll draw my my sketch onto here, and sometimes when I draw it, I'll project my original sketch bigger, so I don't have to recreate the entire thing. I'll have a little bit of guidelines. I end up having to redraw it mostly anyways, but at least that way I get it big onto the surface. Then I have got my pencil line on there only. And I don't paint like that anymore where I just paint right on the white. I just can't do that anymore for almost anything. What I do now is I'll coat it with an underpainting color. Because what happens is that influences anything else that's going to go, any further layers are going to be influenced by that. I mean, you've got skin tones here, and yet that sap green is underneath there, still kind of influencing the way that your eye perceives these siennas and these light brown tones. They wouldn't look that way if it was white that was just underneath there, or if it was red or green, or a red or blue or something else. On these, the underpainting, you can see the underpainting is this raw sienna color here, that really light golden color. And what that does is that really influences the overall palette of that piece. And I do that with most of the stuff. If I want a book to, and what I'll do is I'll play around with the palette for each of these books, and when I come up with one, then I'll try to stick to that for the whole book. For that Bob Marley book, I came up with a palette that was a general palette that I wanted to use, and then for certain pieces I wanted to influence them, make them emotionally feel a certain way, like more depressed or more jubilant or something. I would use a different underpainting to help push that. So the same acrylic colors that I'm using are going to be there for both paintings, but because of that underpainting, one is going to feel a little bit different than the other. For this Hope for Haiti book, I wanted to match the color palette of when you walk off a plane in Haiti and you see what you see. And it's just gorgeous Caribbean. You know, if you guys have ever been to the Caribbean before, it's just greens and reds and browns are so intense because the sun is that much more intense there, and so the colors are just really popping. So for those, I'm definitely influenced by the look of the place. If it's even on the people, just having the colors be really pronounced and vivid, because when you go to that place, when you go down there to the Caribbean, everything is just super intense. So I live way up here in the Northwest, and when I come back home after a trip like that, I just think, man, everything is so pale. All the greens are pale green, even though there's tons of greens, but they're pale compared to how they are down there. So, super long answer for a short question. Sorry.
I'm Sadie, and how do you choose what perspective to draw your illustrations from?
Awesome question. Definitely, well, like this. This is how I do it. I try them all, or well, I try as many as I can. There's one scene in this is my books. There's one scene in this book here. In fact, it ended up being similar to the cover, but I'll find it real quick. So this is the spread. This was, to me, this is the emotional exclamation point in the story, sort of the pinnacle of the emotion of the story. And so I wanted it to be, it just had to be right. It had to be a certain way. And so I tried lots of different versions of it. From below him, I don't know if you can actually see that or not. One where the kid is above and we're sort of the camera, the POV is sort of down, looking up at him. Another where we're looking from the other side of the fence, looking at him through the fence. And I did this, you know, there's probably 30 or 40 different versions of that same thing. So I just do it until I find the one that works. and I don't know any other way to do it other than just try them out and look. I can try it in my mind and make a decision. I'm going to do this one from above, but when I try it and it looks bad, I'm not going to keep going with it just because I had that idea in my head, you know. It's all about just doing the math, so to speak, of the art. Sketch it out, see what it looks like. If it's no good, toss it, try another version.
We'll have one more quick question, and then Ms. Adler would like to ask a final question.
All right.
So,
my name is Angelina, and my question was, what's your favorite media and what media you use for Chess Rumble?
All right. I think what I use for Chess Rumble is acrylics on illustration board. The interiors for Chess Rumble, all the interior art is black and white. Well, it's actually grayscale, right? So they're all grayscale. But I cheated a little bit, used a little bit of Payne's gray, which is a bluish gray. I also used a tiny hint of some browns in there to get a warmer gray tone. And then I made the publisher print it in full color. So even though it was just, it looks like it's just black and white art, they print it in full color, so you get this really rich image on the page. And they were going to just print black ink on white page, and I said, no, you don't. I won't do the book if it's going to be like that, because it's going to look like garbage. And so it turned out, I mean, I love that printing. That's one of the best printings of any book I've done, is Chess Rumble. And you can feel the color in there. And it's just with, you know, hints of those tones that make the grays warmer or cooler, right? The color is color. There's a little bit of color in the cover, but not much, just a little hint, you know. And that's just because in the cover they thought having it strictly black and white in the cover would be, I don't know, not as attractive as having a little bit of color. So I work it. So that's my favorite. Acrylics are my favorite medium to work in. Except my very favorite of anything at all is just straight up pencil, graphite pencil on paper. I find that I continue to find that the most challenging, the most foundational of all my art is just drawing. You know what I mean? And it's the one that I have the most work on to get better. It's the one I see as having the biggest need to get better. Even though that's what I do all the time, and I'm pretty good with it, but I can still feel like I need to get better at drawing with pencil. And I think any medium you are into, if you're a watercolor only, I know a lot of kids that in art school that are like, no, I do watercolors. And that's fine. If you want to do watercolors, you should take sculpture classes, you should take pencil drawing, you should try oils, because all that stuff is going to influence the one thing you do. And if you have a chosen medium, the best thing you can do is get out of that box and try other stuff. It'll definitely help that medium get better.
Hi, I'm Ms. Adler. I'm the teacher lucky enough to have these great kids.
All right, very, very lucky.
I am. We really enjoyed your book, Chess Rumble, and they have been very glued to your conversation today, so I really appreciate your time with us. What do you advise kids to do if they want to go into art in the future?
Yeah, there's a couple things. There's no other way to get better other than what?
trying it.
Practice.
Thank you. Exactly. Practice makes...
Perfect.
No, not perfect. No thing is perfect. Practice makes better, because you can always get better. The best artist that you know right now has a lot of work to do to get better, right? It's all about just simply doing it a bunch. There's no cheating. There's no skipping through nothing. None of that. If you go to art school, that doesn't matter. You're going to have to do the same thing that someone that's just not going to school at all does. You just have to do it a bunch. Do it for years. I chose to do painting. I chose to get better at painting because I was not very good at painting. I did a lot of other stuff well, but I was not very good at painting. And I said, well, I'm sick and tired of having paintings be a lottery where I get one good one and then I get like 30 bad ones. And so I just painted for 5 years of my life. I painted nothing but one subject matter. I painted hundreds of paintings. And in that process, I started seeing myself getting better and better and better. You got to get the bad art out of you somehow. And it's going to come out one way or another, so just doing it a bunch. And then the other thing is you got to kind of grow thick skin, because it's so personal. You know, you create this art, it comes from inside your soul, and you hear somebody walk by and go, oh, that's stupid, I hate that, it looks like a pig, that doesn't look like a person, and you just feel that inside. But you can't, you just got to let that go. It's like your children, you just got to have your children and let them just go off into the world and have their own life. That's all you got to do. You just got to keep perfecting your job, which is simply the creation process, you know. Yeah, that's it.
Thank
Work.
you so much.
Thank you, guys. Great questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, bye. Have a good day.
You too.
All right, see ya.
You guys were a great audience.